The LeMans Classic with Richard Mille and EFG Bank.
LeMans Classic, powered by RadioLeMans.com. Hello everybody and welcome back to MotorsTV's coverage of Le Mans Classic 2010. Just having a real good look here at the Decadene, the little 8-cylinder prototype signed by Alan there that was here in 1972. Well, on today's show we'll be bringing you all of the action from the practice sessions yesterday. Some fantastic cars out on the 8.5 mile circuit here at La Sarthe, and we've also got some awesome images from the nighttime practice sessions, which really are very, very evocative. We'll also be back up at our studio, the set at the top of the paddock, with some more guests to talk about this fantastic event, and we'll even give you a little bit of action from the first race of the weekend. That's all here on MotorsTV at the 2010 Le Mans Classic. So here's how things went in the practice and qualifying. It was Plateau 3 that were out first, and it was a very close run thing with just 1/1000th of a second between the 38 Ferrari and the 52 Aston Martin DB4 GT that you saw just there. And in the end it was Gregor Fisken and Harry Leventis who just about took it, as I said, by the smallest of margins. The Lotus 15 of Roger Wills and Joe Twyman in third position. Lotus 15 wearing an appropriate number, and one of the most unlikely racing cars here, perhaps the Saab 93. The 56 car qualifying in 72nd position. And there is the car that eventually took pole position, the S Ferrari. This is the Lotus 15 down in 4th position. There were a few improvements in the night session, but it didn't affect the pole sitter. It was still that Ferrari that had the best time. Moving on to plateau number 4, and an eclectic mix of sports racing cars here. Ford going through. Problems there for the number 6 GT40. It would, however, end up in 4th position. The bright yellow car attracting a lot of photographers' lenses. Carlos Monteverde, Gary Pearson and Andrew Smith sharing the drive. Christian Gleisel was the man that really shone in the Ford GT, though. 4 minutes 40.5 wasn't bettered in the evening session. He was a couple of seconds slower, and that meant that he would be on the pole position for Plateau 4. On to plateau number 5 now. And one of my real favourites was the star here, the very rare Ligier GS3. The yellow and green number 34. Jacques Nicolet and Jean-Marc Lucot sharing the driving. And there's the Turbo Helmet TX as well, the turbine-powered car. Another real mix of cars and ability, keeping the crowd entertained all the way through the practice session. Ferrari 512M in the hands of Dominic and Dieter Rochemar. Bobby Verdenroe, Gregor Fiskin and Harry Leventer sharing the 38 Ferrari P3 we got a quick look at there, and the iconic Gulf colours on display as well, with Vern Schuppen and Richard Atwood. Richard taking the first stint in the Porsche 917. Second, Gary Pearson and Carlos Monteverde. Tommy Erdosa, Le Mans veteran from the 24 Hours, of course. And there is that beautiful Ligier. Just got a quick before look at it there. That is the 65 car we were on board with for just a few moments there, qualifying a little bit further down the field. Now let's move on to the next plateau, plateau number 6. Some of my very favourite ever cars. Really see how the sports car design had come on through the years. Dominique Genot there in the Porsche 935, number 49. And as ever, here at Le Mans, even with 8.5 miles, finding somewhere to get a quick lap. Ludwig Caron there in the Chevron B21, a little black car, proving very nimble. It's amazing how many he did good times. Michael Quinu in the Lola T280 would finish up in second place. And it was the number 36 Porsche, Jacques Nicolet and Jean-Marc Lucot again taking their second fastest time of the meeting so far. To finish off the qualifying sessions, we go back the furthest in time to plateaus number 1 and 2. This is the plateau number 1 selection for you. Aston Martin in the hands of Jane Varley and Richard Lake there, the red car, the 21, going through as well. HRG 1500, the 35 car. And then, of course, the Talbot Works cars, all the Go geo-registered cars. Good to see them back as a team again. Third place at the end of practice for the Martin Bugler and Colin Bugler. Second for Gareth Burnett, Julian Bronson and Lee Maxted Page in the Talbot 105. And the similar car, Go 52, one of those works cars, the number 4 of Alex Ames, Julian Bronson and Gareth Burnett with the fastest time in the daytime. In the night it was a little bit different. Albert Otten got the best of them in their BMW, in his BMW 328, but not in a faster time. So we move on to our final group of the 6. This is plateau number 2. The D-Type Jag of Matt Grace, Gary Pearson, Carlos Monteverde, hanging around well inside the top 10, would get an 8th place finish. 1 place ahead of them, Chris Clark and John Clark in the Cooper T39. The top 6 pretty much a Jaguar benefit, with Alex and Chris Bunkum in the 15 car in 6th. Simon Hope and Peter Newmark in the 14 Jaguar D-Type in 5th. Robert Newell and Stefan Ziegler in the 29 car in 4th, all these Jag D-Types. Then the Interloper, the 28 Maserati. Pretty car for Adrian Kraft. He managed to scoop 3rd position among all of the leaping cats. And then the top 2, D-Types again. Roger Earl, Gavin Pickering and Tony Pickering in the 4 car. And the best time for Michael Shriver and Simon Hadfield in the red number 2 Jaguar D-Type. Well, there are certainly plenty of ways to spend your money here at Le Mans Classic 2010, and whether it's a few photographs, a book, or maybe for those of us with slightly deeper pockets, one of the 60 or so cars that the auction house Art Curial have for sale, worth, we're told, around about €9 million. And here's one of the stars of the show, one of the BMW art cars, a beautiful McLaren F1.
C'est le clou parce que c'est une sorte de Joconde de
The commissioner of the sale, Hervé Poulain, says this is a phenomenal opportunity for someone to buy a work of art as a car by the genius Gordon Murray. It's an extraordinary car. It was built by McLaren, powered by BMW, of course. It's got a double history, if you like, a career of racing history for the McLaren, including here at Le Mans.
Ou non, fièrement. Et puis, une autre histoire, c'est qu'elle
its other history is part of the BMW art car series. This one designed by the sculptor César, who did the decoration.
L'image de la compression des coupes que j'avais gagné au Mans.
The images represent the trophy of Le Mans.
Comme un alchimiste, vous voyez.
He's working as almost an alchemist to transform the car and to augment the vehicle.
Ta gloire.
Certainly an almost amazing vehicle and one of a kind. They're looking for €1 million for this car, and already the bidding above that. How high will it go?
€1,200,000. Oui, oui, 1,3 million. 1,6 million, vous tenez en charge. 1,6 million. 750 000. Alors 1,8 million l'enchère. 1,8 million. On la juge. On la juge.
On the block for €1,800,000 for this unique McLaren, a record for the sale. Thank goodness there are other lots for those of us with more modest budgets. Well, here is a car that truly has mythical status, not just here at Le Mans. Just 126 examples constructed in contemporary times. It is, of course, the Ford GT40, built to take on Ferrari here at Le Mans, of course, and it was the late 60s, 67, 68 and 69 that the Ford went into history. Now today, of course, there are still pretty much all of the original models around, and they've been added to by, here at least, almost 400 GT40s owners clubs.
Many years ago, I wanted to build a car, and I said to a neighbour, I'm going to build a Lotus. And he said, no, you've got to build a GT40. So I went off and read all the books and decided to build a GT40.
You built a GT40 on your own hands?
I built that one there.
This one was built by you?
4 years. Hard work, and every time it went wrong, I said to myself, why didn't I buy a Lotus? I'm still pleased I've got it. I've had a lot of fun over the years. Wouldn't do it again, it was very hard work. I enjoy driving it.
Are you happy to be here with all the club?
It's great. I mean, it's a great club, a very friendly club. Everybody's proud of their cars, and they're just nice people.
My car is an ERA GT40 clone. It's the nearest thing to the originals that you can buy without making an original, which of course you can't anymore.
Did you buy it expensively?
Around about £125,000. I don't know what that is in euros. Well, today it's very bloody nearly the same, but about 125 by the time it was in the United Kingdom. But it was the best you could get, so it was going to be expensive. But there we go.
A lot of fun tonight for you?
Oh yes, for sure. It's absolutely fantastic car. Just everything you would expect and more. It's a lovely car to drive. Lovely car to drive.
Well, this car has a truly international and indeed universal appeal, and it's not just the Brits who have taken this fast Ford to their hearts.
La GT40, c'est une voiture immortelle. Aujourd'hui, c'est un classique. D'ailleurs, quand on roule, moi je viens par la
route. The GT40 is an immortal car. It's a real classic. I drive here on the road. People wave to us as we're on the motorways. And when we stop to refuel, adults, children, they come to take pictures. They have this car in the video games. They know the car, particularly in the Gulf colours. It's a mythical car today, and it has an incredible shape. We're not sure who designed it, but it is a classic of design.
Et c'est un classique total au niveau du design. Moi, j'ai découvert ça parce que j'ai vu la numéro 6 gagner.
I saw the 1969 win with Jackie Hicks. I was young, but I swear then that I'd have one day. 30 years later, my dream has finally come true. It's been 10 years, and I'm driving an English GTD. This is a replica build, but only 500 in the world between 1990 and 2010. It's a real thrill to share that with the English people. They are very friendly people. I sent my car to England to be restored, and they put it all down to the bare bones and rebuilt it totally for nothing. They know the cars by heart. They are incredible people, passionate, and I'm a passionate man too. Every couple of years we have this opportunity to link all the GT fans here to see that much. There's been, well, 50 Mark 1s and Mark 2s, 2 modern cars, and it's very impressive. When we go out in a group, it's astonishing to drive with maybe 10 cars to the same hotel and to be surrounded by GT40s and being your own. That is incredible, especially when you dreamt about it. And at the Le Mans Classic, when we see the real ones, well, that's fabulous.
Les vrais roulés, enfin les vrais, en principe c'est des vrais, on va dire. Donc c'est voilà, c'est fabuleux quoi.
And of course, among all of the replicas, the original cars are here. And Christian Glazel put in a lap of 4 minutes 40. The myth continues. Anytime that there's a race here at Le Mans, the paddock looks rather more like a small town or a village than just somewhere to have racing cars. And if you're into motor racing and automobiles, well, there's something here to suit every pocket, and you should be able to go home with a present. More than a shop here, this is rather like a small museum dedicated to gasoline pumps.
The oldest pump is this one, which is from 1932 about. It's very rare and difficult to find. How many liters you want, put it with this, and then pump with this one, with this lever, the fuel up to the glasses, and afterwards it runs round through the pipe into the tank of the car.
How much money it costs nowadays?
This pump costs €9,500.
Now, when you think about icons of Hollywood movies, people like Connery and, of course, Clint Eastwood, but if it's motor racing, it has to be Steve McQueen. Now, I promise you, we bumped into this lady completely by accident, and she's explaining that she met Steve McQueen in Paris quite a long time ago when he was having a drink in a bar. She says her friend, it would be her friend of course, got a drink with him, and then McQueen and the lady left and went to the hotel. We don't know if it's true, but it's a great story.
su qu'ils sont partis à son hôtel et elle a passé l'après-midi avec lui.
Talk to any of the drivers here at the 2010 Le Mans Classic and they'll tell you that one of the highlights is undoubtedly being out in the darkness on the 8.5 mile classic circuit. Our camera car is the 66 Ferrari, and here at Le Mans, always the problem, no matter which plateau, is the traffic and the closing speeds. You really do have to keep your wits about you, but there's something just so very special about driving beautiful racing cars in the dead of night and through the dark of the Lesat countryside. Enjoy. Cooler temperatures much kinder on the cars, and although we weren't quite improving our times as quickly as that shot showed, a lot of people did better their times from the afternoon, and simply it was about getting out there, getting some miles under the wheels and just enjoying the experience. There's our camera car. Lovely, isn't it? People tell you it's not dark at Le Mans anymore because everywhere's got floodlights. Look at this, Mulsanne corner and heading down the classic run towards Indianapolis and Arnage. This hasn't changed in years. Watch out for this. This is one of the most iconic sights in motor racing, and you get to see it from on board a classic Ferrari, the Dunlop Bridge at Le Mans at night.
The Le Mans Classic with Richard Mille and EFG Bank.
Le Mans Classic, powered by RadioLeMans.com.
For the moment, Aston Martin has the upper hand in the all-new European GT4 Championship, with Holland's Paul Meyer leading the championship. But England's Michael Mallock will be out to turn the tide of round 3 from Paul Ricard in France this Saturday, July the 17th from 2:50 on MotorsTV. If you've never experienced the close quarter rough and tumble action and thick black smoke that is the staple of the European Truck Racing Championships, be sure to join us on MotorsTV this Saturday, July the 17th from 3:15 to discover what all the fuss is about. Inside Racing is produced with a true motor racing fan in mind. Behind the scene encounters of those whose job it is to push their personal limits and those of their machines, no matter the discipline, no matter the location. Episode 9 comes your way Saturday, July the 17th from 9 p.m.
The Le Mans Classic with Richard Mille and EFG Bank.
Le Mans Classic, powered by RadioLeMans.com. Well, welcome back to Motors TV, set here at the top of the paddock. I'm John Hindhaugh, and joining me, another legend at this legendary event, Vic Elford. Thank you very much for being here. And goodness me, this event just keeps getting better and better, doesn't it?
Well, I don't know, because this is actually the first time I've been here.
Me too. Has it shocked you, the sheer size of it?
It has indeed, yeah, because, you know, the 24 hours of Le Mans is pretty impressive. What's not really shocked me, but surprised me, is how much the circuit and all the facilities have changed. Yes. You know, I came for the 24 hours, actually not as a driver, but about 10 years ago. And since then, the facilities, particularly for the spectators and paddock, have, I mean, just multiplied by 2 or 3 times.
These classic events have really gained in popularity over the last decade or so. Why do you think it is that a whole new generation have started to discover the cars that you and your contemporaries made famous? Well,
I really don't know, because it's, you know, I live in America now, and it's pretty big in America, but absolutely nothing like this. And I've read, I rarely get to England. I get to France or Europe once or twice a year. And I found that, and I read about it, of course, that these sort of events are much, much bigger here than they are in America. Even though I would venture to say there's more money available for it in America generally, but there's much more enthusiasm here, and I suspect it's because tracks and races like Le Mans delve back deep into history, and that sort of history doesn't exist in the United States.
Yeah, that is a very good point. And Le Mans is all-pervading, isn't it? Everybody, if they are even slightly interested in cars, and particularly sports cars, the two words Le and Mans together is instantly evocative.
Oh, absolutely, and for everybody, and they don't even have to be race fans. You know, many years ago I was the team manager for the Inaltera team here, a French team, and I see lots of people walking around with Inaltera t-shirts on today, and you know, that was 45 years ago, 1976, 77, and even at 35 years, even at that time, people in America knew what Le Mans was, and in fact that was one of the reasons Inaltera, as a constructor and a major sponsor, chose Le Mans, because they figured on getting to America there were only 3 possibilities: Formula One, which is out of the question financially even then, Indy cars, which would be only America, or Le Mans, which would be worldwide.
Henri Pescarolo, of course, with that team, and here reunited with a similar car that he drove. I think he finished 8th here that particular year. It's just down in the paddock behind us. Now, how long is it since you've done any driving, and are you not tempted to get back in and be reunited with some of your old cars?
No, I'm not tempted at all now.
Really?
The last time I drove competitively, it was actually wasn't that long ago. It was about 10 or 12 years ago. I was still driving in vintage racing in the United States, Can-Am and Trans Am and things like that. Now I'm no longer tempted. I drive occasionally in parades. I believe I'm going to this afternoon in a Porsche of some sort. I don't know which one, but they told me to bring my helmet and my suit, so it's here, and I'll be driving something in the parade. Maybe the Longtail Martini, which I drove here in 1971. I don't know.
Oh, good heavens!
But I have no inkling, no temptation to get behind the wheel again.
The advantage that you have over quite a lot of modern drivers, certainly, is the fact that you were always known as an all-rounder, and basically you would drive anything and did drive anything and did it to a very high standard. It might be a sports car or even a Formula One car one weekend, or a touring car or a rally car the next. Now, did you do that because you wanted to? Did you need to because the financial situation was different in those days, or did you just love driving so much?
Actually, a little bit of all three. When I started, I started rallying originally as a co-driver because I had no money. My parents didn't have enough money to support me at all. And then I moved to the other side of the car and started driving in rallies. And I just simply liked driving everything. I always did. From being a rally driver and champion first, then when I went to Porsche, they themselves said, look, it's about time you started integrating into circuit racing if you want to. So they gave me my first drives in 906s, 910s and so on. And in the meantime, I drove in the British Touring Car Championship. Then I went to Formula One. Then I started going backwards and forwards to America, driving in Can-Am and Trans Am. And I'm even one of the very few people, one of the very few Brits in any case, who actually drove in NASCAR in the 500 miles of Daytona twice and finished in the top 10 each time.
And that was in the days when those stock cars were really stock cars, not the sort of tube frame specific race cars that we see nowadays.
Absolutely, they were pure
Big
stock
heavy
cars.
old beasts.
They were big heavy old beasts. They were real stock cars, you know, real cars with a roll cage built in, or not built in, but bolted inside them. Now, of course, as you say, they're one-off race cars with plastic bodies made to look like the real thing. But it was an experience I wouldn't have forgone for anything.
How did the guys over there treat you? Because in those days, that was long before what is now known as the Sprint Cup really took off. Winston's sponsorship is what really brought it to the public's attention with the TV in the United States. Well, this was long before those days. They couldn't get it on television. They had to give it to the TV companies. And it was very much seen as a national American thing and a southern national American thing as well. So how did they take to this European, this limey coming over and having a go with them and doing rather well?
You actually put it all into words there. It was most unusual. As you say, it used to be then a bunch of cowboy booted redneck southerners. But incredibly, when I was expecting anything. And when I got to Daytona, I wasn't there for the first couple of weeks of practice. But I was there just for the major, you know, the last days of practice, and I was absolutely amazed that I was welcomed by them in a way that I would never have imagined possible, and I'm quite sure Europeans would not have welcomed Americans in the same way. It was great. You know, over there, when somebody comes new to a series like that, whatever the series, there's a rookie orientation program and speech, if you like. In my case, it was Richard Petty, the king of stock cars, who was doing the rookie orientation. And actually, they were really nice people. I'll tell you a little story if we've got time. One day I was getting changed in the garage area, and in those days, women were not allowed in the garage area, not even women journalists, no women. Now they got women drivers as well as journalists, but then no women. One day I was standing in the garage, I was just in my garage getting stripped off to my underwear, and getting dressed in my fireproof underwear, my no-mix suit, and leaning up against the door of the garage was Buddy Baker, who was a guy about 6'2" tall, big, hefty guy, very nice, very pleasant guy. I was very good friends with him. But this first time he's leaning up at the garage door and he's looking at me and saying, "Where's he think he's going, to the moon?" And I said, "No, buddy, but I'd rather be a little bit too hot for a long time than a lot too hot for a little time." And he thought about it. Okay. I went back the following year, and there in the garage is Buddy Baker putting on his fireproof underwear and his gloves, which none of them ever wore before. And I said, "What happened, Buddy? You get burned?" And he said, "Yep."
And it's amazing, actually, that even I remember a couple of years ago, Dale Earnhardt Jr. at Infineon Motor Speedway, Infineon at Sonoma, drove a Corvette and wasn't wearing proper underwear and got himself burned. So it's an odd sort of "it can't happen to me" mentality. Have you got any idea, Vic, how many cars you drove over your career?
No.
Thousands.
No, probably not. But I can figure it out. Probably I can figure it out because I've got an exceptional memory. But it'll take me about two days.
I mean, this must be a question you've been asked before, but how did you manage to change your mindset between each of these cars, which even now would still be a very different way of driving, a different concept? How did you do it then? How did you get your mind right?
I have no idea. I just could do it. I could drive a 911 through a forest where it's sideways the entire time, or an ice and snow, and instantly change to driving a 917, which you drove as though it were on rails. And in fact, I would go even further. On the Targa Florio, for example, there are three little towns, Cerda, Colisani and Campofelice, on the way around the 45-mile loop of a Targa Florio lap. And outside of the towns, I would drive as though on a racetrack because there was good surface, good grip, and I would drive the car on rails. The moment I would come into any one of the three towns, one of the big industries there is marble mining, whatever you do to get marble, which meant that at one place where the marble sort of area was, and in the three towns there would be marble dust all over the road, which is you can't see it, so fine, but incredibly slippery. And I would simply change my method of driving in the race. I would drive like I was on rails outside the towns. Once I came into each of the 3 towns, I would start driving the car sideways like a rally car.
And was that just a natural thing? You didn't have to think to yourself, right now, Vic,
no.
I know this is going to happen. I sort of shifted a switch in your head.
No.
It was just you were reacting to what you could feel the car doing.
Yeah. Plus, I knew where I was going to change, and I've got an exceptional memory for roads and things like that. So I just remember, I didn't make any conscious effort. I would just get to a point where I would start driving sideways.
We've got about 90 seconds left, so very quickly, what are you doing now? You're based in the States. You've still been involved with 1 or 2 drivers and doing a bit of driver management. You still involved with that, Vic?
Not anymore. No, I was for a while with a Venezuelan driver, Milka Juno, who finally decided she could do it much better on her own than without me, and promptly started going backwards. So, she's a disaster now, which is a shame, because she wasn't going to be a world champion, but she had a little bit of talent to start with, and then decided...
Well, I remember in the American Le Mans series, she was more than competent, in fairness.
No, she wasn't really. She was hanging on to Andy Wallace's coattails. Andy Wallace won the races, and her name just went along with it. And now she's driving in Indy cars. It shows, more than ever.
So are you completely retired now, just enjoying events like this?
I enjoy coming and doing things like this while I'm in the States. I often go to, as guest Grand Marshal for the weekend for Porsche Club events, other events. In fact, I was the Rolex Grand Marshal for the Daytona 24 Hours this year, which was rather fun, because they asked me to address all the drivers at the drivers' meeting.
And I'm sure they all listened very, very carefully. Vic Elford, thank you very much. I know you're a very busy man with your duties here for the Club de Pilote. Thank you very much for being with us on Motors TV. Well, we'll have some more guests for you here in our set. Thank goodness the sun is shining. I'm not going to complain about the weather. Stay with us on Motors TV. When we come back, we'll have more from the 2010 Le Mans Classic. Welcome back to the Motors set here at the top of the paddock for Le Mans Classic 2010. Got a couple of guests with me in the beautiful sunshine here. Closest to the camera here from Autosport magazine, it's the National Motorsport editor, and that's Kevin Turner. Hello, Kevin.
Hello, good afternoon.
Welcome to Classic Le Mans, your first time.
It is,
here.
thank you very much.
Well, an old stager in every sense of the word from RadioLeMans.com, helping us out here this weekend, and a veteran of not only this but many classic events, Paul Tarsi.
Well, hello, John. It's a fabulous, fabulous day today in every sense, isn't it?
I still can't quite, gentlemen, get the scale of this. I've said it to all my guests, but the scale of the event just is so difficult to get my head around. Paul, you have been to pretty much all of these. You were regular. In fact, you're a member of the Goodwood Road Racing Club. So, first of all, the big question is, how does this compare to Goodwood? And can you, or indeed should you, compare Le Mans Classic to Goodwood, either the Revival or the Hill Climb, the Festival of Speed?
I don't think you can compare it, to be honest. I think they're very different events that you have with Goodwood. It is fixed in terms of numbers that they can take in there anyway, and particularly if you look at the Revival, which is probably the fair one to do, which is the event that runs in September on the circuit rather than the hill climb course. At the circuit, you have cars of a very specific era, because the principle of the Goodwood Revival is that it's cars that actually raced at the circuit in period, so therefore you're looking at 1948 to 1964, whereas here we have a huge spread. But you can also get an awful lot more people in. Just walking through the paddock this morning, the amount of people here just looking at the stalls, looking at the shops, drooling over the cars, of course, is huge. There's so many people here, and it's a very different crowd from the 24 hours.
Oh, very, very indeed, yes.
And I think it therefore sits somewhere between a traditional historic event and the Le Mans 24 Hours, because it's a bit of both, but it's such a great event, and it's grown fantastically as well.
Kevin, if I can come to you, this is not obviously standard bread and butter fare for Autosport magazine. It's more on the classic side. You're the national editor anyway, so clearly they've made you go and get a passport before you came here. And if I may say so, you are one of a younger generation that is here this weekend. Not exclusively you, there are plenty of them. But what is it that brings you here Is it just the job, or is this a personal passion of yours?
Oh no, it's a personal thing really. I mean, I asked the editor if I could come along and cover it because I've never been before, and he was up for that. And obviously, well, I mean, we try and cover the big historic meetings as much as we can. Obviously, we do all the British club stuff. The thing that brings me here this year really, I mean, I love historic racing. I've done the Silverstone Classic. Actually, I think the Silverstone Classic is probably more akin to this event than Goodwood, which is also fantastic. But it's partly just all the historic cars. I mean, the number of cars I've already seen. I got here yesterday. The number of cars I've already seen I've never seen before. But the biggest thing is I'm a big Porsche 917 fan, and I've never seen one raced sort of properly. I think I saw one at the Silverstone Classic which wasn't really working properly a few years back. So I suppose if any one car can drag me to a meeting, it would be that one.
And we've got the Solar 917 behind us, so you know we'll let you get in there and pretend to be Steve McQueen shortly. What was it that got you into that then? Was that in your DNA? Is it a family thing? Because it's not the sort of thing that I would expect someone going into motorsport journalism to say, oh, I really want to go and do the classic meetings. Clearly, like any form of motorsport, everybody wants to start at the top and go straight into the Formula One paddock.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of my colleagues think I'm mad, I think. But I think I got into motorsports with two ways, really. One is the way a lot of people do, which is watching F1 on telly. But the other one is my dad used to take me to historic race meetings, Aston Martin Owners Club, Historic Sports Car Club, and just loved it all, really. And then I started looking through old sports, old motorsports. I remember spending years that I probably should have been out playing football or other things, reading, you know, Pedro Rodriguez winning, you know, Brands Hatch in 1970 by 5 laps in the wet and things like that. So,
were you there for that, Paul?
Do you know, worryingly, I was. I can remember it clearly, and in fact, there was a photograph that appeared in a motor magazine fairly recently, about 18 months ago, and I thought, I was at that spot at Druids when he was driving, and fair enough, as I actually drilled down into the photo, there was me as a somewhat more callow youth standing in the rain.
I think that's another one of the reasons why the meetings like this are so popular, because you get two people coming to you, you get two types of people coming to you. The people that were there at the time and just loved it and want to come back and see it again, and then people like myself who we weren't able to see it. You know, C917s or going back for any of the pre-war cars, the Talbots and the Alphas and things. So this is the only chance we get, really, to see it, other than sort of old footage, which is difficult to come by sometimes.
Now, quite clearly, when we've mentioned this fact in our coverage on RadioLeMans.com and here at the circuit on the FM frequency, there is a slight dichotomy in seeing the older cars in the more modern surroundings, which some of the other classic meetings, the revival, for example, at Reims, the Goodwood revival, they've done their best to sort of make that slightly less of a clash. However, that aside, how true to life are the cars that we're seeing now from the era that you were watching them when it was their era, when they were contemporary racing cars?
They're very true to life. They're exactly as they would have been. I think, OK, they're probably running on a bit better tyres and the brakes probably are a bit better, but by and large, all of these cars are as they would have been. I agree with you about the whole thing of there being a bit of a difference about running on a circuit like this from perhaps Reims or Goodwood. And certainly with practice last night, and I'm determined to call it practice, not qualifying.
Yes, yes.
That in practice last night, seeing the pre-war cars going up the start-finish straight here, which was a bit like driving up Fifth Avenue in a Bentley, that it didn't quite work. But then we saw on the monitors when we were in the studio that run from Mulsanne Corner down to Arnage, and it was trees, it was all the things that it could have been.
Darkness.
It was absolutely fabulous. Although, of course, with the pre-war cars and some of the early post-war cars as well, they would have been running on what was very nearly a dirt road down through there. So a very different kind of car, a very different kind of race. But yeah, you can do that thing of half closing your eyes and
Squint,
you can quite easily be there, and I think that's what makes all the difference.
Are you feeling that, Kevin?
Yeah, the squint is better than nothing at all, isn't it? I think, you know. So, and obviously, again, coming back to Goodwood, one of the reasons they don't run the more modern stuff is because the track hasn't got the modern updates, all the runoff areas and things, which obviously is, I suppose it's one of the sort of scourges of modern motorsport, isn't it, the runoff areas? It's kind of good on one hand and means you stand a lot further away on the other. But it means that you don't get the 917s, for example, around Goodwood. I mean, imagine that. But Le Mans obviously does have all the modern runoff, so you can go further. You have a bigger span of time. But the other thing about it, of course, is that we've got a lot of the drivers from period. I mean, Richard Attwood driving as well. And like Goodwood, you've got a mix of some of the guys who raced at the time who have still got it, it. They usually know what they're. Okay, they might not be 10 tenths, but you can tell the class, and you get top historic racers who get out there and mix it with them, and you see the cars being used properly.
I want to have a quick word in the 5 minutes or so that we've got left about the drivers and the difference in the drivers then to now. Vic Elford was sitting right where Paul is just a few moments ago and talking to us here on the MotorsTV set. Now, Vic, whilst not possibly the very last of, was one of the last of the true great all-rounders. True great all-rounders. And we just don't see that anymore, certainly not when drivers are in the full flush of their career. And I think, Paul, and I'll come to you in a second, Kevin, about why, and I think I know what you'll say, but I think motorsport is slightly the poorer for that, Paul.
I absolutely agree. I think you have to start with the principle that there is Formula One and then there is motor racing. And that if you do that and you say, well, if everybody is focused utterly on becoming a Formula One star, which an awful lot of people are, even at the lowest levels within motorsport, then it skews the view. One of the things about being here is that everybody's here because they want to be, yes, and everybody here is having a really, really good time. That's one of the great things about historic racing. People like Vic Elford, yeah, I absolutely agree that he was at the kind of tipping point. Before then, in the 50s, we had racing drivers. You didn't have a huge chance of survival as a racing driver back in the 50s, and that at that sort of time, that was about post-war, where people, where it's an awful thing to say, but life was cheap during the war, and we moved through that through to the what I suppose we could call the Jackie Stewart era, and all credit to him for what he did for safety. But it moved, and I think that Vic Elford and his contemporaries, really, they sort of sat in the middle of that.
And still no circuit has a Stewart corner in the UK, which I still think is a travesty. We must get that sorted out.
Yeah.
Kevin, the easy thing to say in the last couple of minutes or so is that nowadays motor racing is far more of a business. The drivers are far more of an investment, particularly at the sharp end of things. But whilst that is true, and I understand that, you know, Mark Webber is already, you know, putting himself at risk in the Red Bull, letting him go and drive something else on his weekend off, a touring car or whatever, or a sports car, perhaps might not be the best thing to do. But is that the whole story, or is it just a cop-out?
No, well, I think it depends on the individuals. I mean, I think people like Stefan Zarazan show that you can do more than one thing and be good at it. But I think if you're at the very top, and we've seen how difficult it is for F1 drivers to switch to the DTM and be competitive. The DTM isn't a championship that immediately comes to mind as being, all the best drivers are there. But the guys that are in it, it's a specialism. Each category becomes much more specialist. You need to be getting that last nth degree, whereas it makes it much more difficult to compare drivers as well. Back in the 50s, you knew Moss was the best driver there because he'd win the F2 race, the F1 race, jump into a touring car, win that, and probably the GT race as well. But they can't do that now because I think, first of all, you've got more professional drivers coming through. So the average level is probably higher. And also, because it's safer, more people can get that last nth degree. I think, say, you could be great before by just being better and pushing the limits a bit. Now you have to push them more, because more people can do it.
Right. Just in the 90 seconds or so we've got left, Paul, what have you seen that's caught your eye, or what do you want to see before you leave here on Sunday evening?
Everything is the answer. That you walk around the paddocks and you think, oh, I'm going to go into the 1970s paddock because that looks great, and you wander around, you dribble a bit, and
all of a sudden 2 hours have gone by.
And 2 hours have gone by, and then you walk down to the next one and you see 1960s cars and you think, that's actually almost as good as the other one. Then you do it again, and there isn't a favourite because they're all different. And that's what's great about this event.
Right, OK, 917 running in anger, clearly, but what else?
Well, I think racing against the 512 would be good, although I think that they're probably both going to get beaten by the Ligier. I have a fear.
That was my pick.
But there are some brilliantly random things in the 70s. I mean, the Chevy Monza, I think, is fantastic, and the Dodge Charger. I think it's just brilliant to get something of that random here that you wouldn't normally see.
And it is all about the diversity. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being with us. It's MotorsTV live from the Classic Paddock here at LeMans Classic 2010. We've already had a fantastic day's event, and we haven't even seen any real track action in terms of racing side by side, although perhaps some of the drivers haven't quite worked that out yet. We've got a day, a night and another day to go. Stay with us on Motors TV as we bring you all of the highlights for this fantastic celebration of everything to do with the motor car and what is effectively the United Nations of motorsport. Motors TV at the 2010 Le Mans Classic.
The Le Mans Classic with Richard Mille and EFG Bank.
Le Mans Classic, powered by RadioLeMans.com.
Be sure not to miss a single stage or any of the sure-to-be spectacular onboard coverage and driver reactions from Day 2 of the first asphalt rally of the 2010 World Rally Championship. It's Rally Bulgaria and it's right here on Motors TV. Tonight is going to be a maximum attack evening beginning at 10:20 thanks to the high-speed television network Motors TV.
Nowhere else but on Motors TV are you, the racing enthusiast, treated to such a wide variety of your favourite sport, and this Monday, July the 12th, is no exception. The action gets underway at 7:15 with round 2 of the FIA European Drag Racing Championship from Alastaro in Sweden, and then at 8:10 will be round 4 of this year's Super 1 Rotax Series Karting Championship from Buckmore Park.
Share all the excitement of the WRC with Total Quartz Lubricants.
You should recognise this face. Her father, of course, won here at Le Mans 6 times, the last time in 1982. She's raced here herself, starting in 2001, has been behind the wheel of a Viper, a Porsche, a Lola, and she's now the ambassador for the Citroën Survolt 100% electric car, presented as a concept car at Geneva and here at Le Mans.
Le projet de départ, c'était de faire une petite voiture extrêmement sexy, extrêmement sensuelle.
Well, we're hearing that it's a very small but sexy and sensual design, emotional and feminine design. Certainly has the Citroën style with technology right of the moment, the electric technology. Citroën are proposing to cut down the CO2 levels, and this could be the first public electric vehicle.
Vous savez que ça a toujours nourri l'automobile dans son évolution technologique, et de cette manière on voulait marier en fait la compétition et puis la voiture de production qui est à 16 €.
Donc déjà c'est une vraie voiture de sport. Donc c'est une voiture avec un châssis tubulaire.
It's a true sports car with a tubular chassis, couple of electric motors which drive the car forwards, rated at around about 300 horsepower. 300 horsepower, yep, that's what he said. 260 kilometers an hour and 0 to 62 miles an hour in about 6 seconds. Valina X is one of the first to drive this electric supercar.
Les sensations sont
Valina X telling us that after she'd driven it, she could say that there was an excellent sensation in driving the car, and very new for her.
Elle a un très bon comportement.
The acceleration superb, and it handles like a cart, and of course it's all good for the environment as well, which is very important nowadays.
Respect de l'environnement a une valeur toute particulière. C'est un peu dans l'air du temps.
It's certainly of the time as well, and looks fashionable. And seeing it here at the Classic is a voyage into the future. It's one of the most beautiful cars of the future that she's seen or driven.
La version électrique, effectivement, on doit s'y pencher.
And Vanina just seeing there, she's perfectly seated because the car feels like it was made for her. Looks good as well, doesn't it? Spooky with having no engine sound, eh? The Savolt opened the parades on race day with some more very, very futuristic vehicles, including that Citroën that you can see behind. In English we have a saying, there's good stuff in little bundles, and here at Le Mans that saying couldn't be more appropriate. This is the Little Big Mall for some very small but very dedicated drivers in 1/4 scale cars of the type that have raced here over the years. And somewhere in this race is an 11-year-old called Sebastian Bell driving a 1/4 scale model of a Jules Porsche. And yes, it is Derek Bell's son making his debut here. Keep your eyes peeled for him.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Armandine. Bienvenue au Little Big Man.
Hello, my name is Michael. Welcome to Little Big Man's. Salut, c'est Mathilde. Bienvenue au Little Big Man.
So we've got 65 rookie drivers, and they're all about to have a run on the brilliant Le Mans circuit.
Mathilde, qui c'est qui t'a donné envie de faire de la course auto?
C'est mon papa.
Now this young lady is explaining she has a lot of passion for cars. She gets it from her dad, and she wants to share her father's passion. Very excited, she says. She's not scared at all.
Ça va, tu vas faire quelque chose de bien sur cette course.
Oui, mais c'est pas une course, en fait c'est un défilé, mais on a le droit de doubler.
D'accord, donc toi t'as envie de doubler quand même.
Un petit peu.
Ah, vous avez pas peur?
Non.
T'as pas peur?
Nobody's scared. They're all ready to get going, of course. Now, quite often, as in life, the more emotional are the parents.
C'est un moment très émouvant pour toute la famille. Le grand-père est
Yes, all the family's so excited. My father's had to go somewhere else because he's actually crying. It's massive.
Et elle était sur la ligne de départ, elle a fait 30 mètres.
Oh, now this lady has a bit of a tale of woe because last time her daughter was in the race 2 years ago. The car only got 30 metres and it stopped. She said it was horrible. She says, I won't have it happen again.
Oui, j'ai envie que ça marche. Je veux pas qu'elle reste sur le carreau là.
Yeah, no, even if I've got to push the car all the way to the finish, I'll get her going.
Pendant 5 km s'il faut. Mais elle va le faire ces 5 km.
Well, the good news was that at least out of the collecting area there was no need to push her daughter's car. She's joined the start in echelon for the traditional Le Mans getaway. Still haven't seen Master Bell, I've got to say.
Where is your car?
19.
19, the red one.
Yeah.
Big crowd to watch this and very supportive, giving the youngsters a really good send-off. 5 kilometres under the Dunlop Bridge and then turning right onto the Bugatti circuit. As you can see, it's... Well, there's Sebastian just going through there. You've got the Gilles Porsche. It's not the fastest pace in the world, but they're all getting a bit of competition. But there's some things more important than taking part, you know. It looks like Mum's happy.
Je sais pas si elle va arriver jusqu'au bout, mais en tout cas, elle a fait le départ.
She was very anxious at the start, but now she's gone.
Si, c'est très stressant. Parce qu'on a envie qu'elle fasse plaisir à leur papa. Et non, c'est chouette.
C'est rigolo parce
I know, saying to her, it looked like she was leaving home for good the way you were watching her. Well, there it is, the start of the Le Mans 2010 Classic as far as racing's concerned. The traditional sprint across the track. Oh, my goodness me, all getting a bit unnecessary, and a very expensive Ferrari far too far on the grass, that 250. You will notice that there was no sign of our pole man, the Harry Leventis Ferrari 246S. That's because he stayed well out of the way there. That was just a pretend start. There he is there. The whole grid was reformed on the Mulsanne Straight, and he took his rightful place at the head of the field, and off that beautiful car went, quickest in both the daytime and the nighttime practice. And for those of you who are watching that think that this, goodness me, is just a little bit of fun, notice damage there as the 64 had contact, the Austin Healey, the Rinus Sinky car, and the verve with which these cars are being driven. Still the Ferrari leading at this point. It's the Jaguar 774RW coming up through the field. Now, look, I'm not a racing driver, but that is not the correct line through there. And the helicopter proving that I'm pretty fairly certain of that. Yes, there was an advantage gained there, wasn't there? Back at the head of the field then, Paul Sitting Ferrari. How much polish goes into that? 774RW in second place. The fantastic D-type. Battles further down the field. The 74 Lotus 15 going well, as was the similar car of Roger Wills and Joe Twyman, the number 4 machine. Very, very hot, 33 degrees Celsius, tyres overheating, and bad news, I'm afraid, for the Lister, the 49 car, with problems for Tom McWhirter and Darren McWhirter. And here is that Jaguar again, 774RW, the only number plate to have won Le Mans on 2 different cars. It's a trade plate, of course. I have to tell you that it took me years to work that out because I'd only have the same black and white pictures of it. And traffic beginning to play a part, as it always does here at Le Mans. One of the reserve cars that was in the field, Ewan McIntyre and Jamie McIntyre in that 59 Lotus 15. A lot of interest in this very expensive Ferrari as it rounds Indianapolis and heads down towards Arnage. The helicopter picking it up as it passes one of the smaller cars, a 356 Porsche, going under the Maranello Koch there. one of the DBs further down the field. A very lovely little barchetta there. Now, how pretty is that? The Abarth Simca 1300. Meantime, there were people going very, very quickly out there, including that 67 Lotus 11. And now picking up Roger Wills again in the Lotus 15. Mandatory pit stops, 90-second stop. The Big Healy, one of the first to come in. If you haven't got a driver change to do, you can stay in it and just have the timing done. And there are one or two people who are driving on their own, which I think is terribly unfair. If you've got a lovely car like this, you should be made to share it. And here is that Ferrari in the pits. Looks like no driver change there. The little blue 34 Cooper Monaco looked very good indeed. And the Lotus Elite, 1961 Elite of Theodoro Charagonis. You can't pick one, can you, to take home? Absolutely beautiful. As the Alpha goes out as well. The little Giulietta SVZ. All the usual passing places that we see in the 24 hours still being used here as well. And still fantastic progress by the 38 Ferrari. Very, very expensive car. Now, we pointed out the 74 earlier on that was going well, the McIntyre Lotus 15, a 2-litre machine. As through goes another wonderful piece of period machinery. The 59 heading through that we saw there was the Oscar. Nice and tight at the Dunlop chicane there for Tom McWhirter and Darren McWhirter in the Lister again. And we're seeing a lot of this 32 car, and that's because Neil Cunningham, who started the car, had a cracking start. Qualified 5th and fought his way through. Now here's something that I could be seeing even right now, Aston Martin passing a Porsche. With that little Abarth Barchetta coming through behind it. Temperatures were very high, as you can see by the heat haze, and one or two of the drivers just babying the cars a little bit, but at the head of the field the pace was very, very quick indeed. '22 is the Porsche 550, infamy from James Dean's accident, of course. And whether it's Ferrari or Porsche, they're being leaned on. Aston Martin versus Corvette. How good is that as the 62 goes by? Peter Thornton in the DB4 GT getting the better of the American muscle as they head out under the Dunlop Bridge. Intermarque rivalry there as well. The two Porsches together. And as you can see, some of the professional drivers pushing on very, very hard. Back to the head of the field now, and Roger Wills and Joe Twyman. Sixth car of Carlos Monteverde, Gary Pearson and Andre Smith would be inside the top 10 in the provisional results, because there has been a bit of argy-bargy about them. And come the checkered flag, in 4th place, the 38, the Harry Leventis, Gregor Fiskin and Bobby Verdenroe Ferrari 246S, the pole sitting car, there it is. Ahead of them in 3rd, the 74 Lotus 15, the metal car, polished metal car. 2nd for Neil Cunningham in the D-Type, the 32. And this car scored as the winner, provisionally at least, of the first race of the 2010 Le Mans Classic. Joe Twyman and Roger Wills in the Lotus 50. We say it's provisional at this time because the result is still being looked into. Through goes Eric Traber in the Ferrari 250 GT Berlinetta. This just the first race of the weekend. 3 rounds of 6 races, 1 for each of the plateaus over 3 rounds, stretch across the full 24 hours, the traditional 4 o'clock start and finish time here at Le Mans for the Classic. It's already been a great weekend, and we've got the bulk of it still to come, and you'll see it all here on MotorsTV in highlight form. The best of the action, I promise you. So join us again when we come back tomorrow for more from Le Mans and the 2010 Classic here on MotorsTV. I'm John Hindhoff. Bye for now.